While everyone is distracted with what the U.S. is doing with Bitcoin, a massive Middle Eastern giant might have just went all in on Bitcoin. A government-sponsored bank in the UAE just announced they are opening Bitcoin trading for all its clients. If you're not paying attention, you really need to be. This Bitcoin bull run could be unlike anything we've ever seen before. Let's get into this, guys. And of course, I'm not alone here. I got what do I always say? Your favorite neighborly friendly Bitcoiner. I butchered that one today. Anyways, we got Chris Alamo here, one of our good friends. What's up, dude? All right, guys, let's get into the headlines. So, as you guys know, the game theory around Bitcoin is getting kicked into overdrive. And now it's not just happening in the U.S. I think since Trump came out and said they are going to make the U.S. the Bitcoin superpower of the world, everyone is scrambling to position themselves to also compete with Bitcoin and make sure they don't get left behind. So the big news for today, Rock Bank becomes the first UAE bank to offer crypto trading for retail. And Rake Bank becomes the first traditional bank in the United Arab Emirates to enable crypto trading for retail users through its mobile app powered by Bitpanda, which is a big European exchange. Now, the real interesting part about this is Rock Bank is a state government-owned bank. So this isn't just like in the U.S., you see a bank, they kind of announce, hey, Trump's going into Bitcoin. We got to also go into Bitcoin. No, this is backed by the government. So the National Bank of Ras Al Khaimah, Rock Bank, a government-owned bank in the United Arab Emirates, is the first conventional bank in the country to offer retail crypto trading. In a Tuesday news release, the bank announced the launch of a crypto brokerage service through its mobile banking app, allowing customers to buy, sell, and swap cryptocurrencies directly from their UAE dirham accounts. Quote, we recognize the opportunity this solution will provide to customers in the UAE, as we believe they deserve a more efficient and seamless crypto buying, selling, and swapping journey that is fully regulated and entirely in AED, which is the local currency dirhams. Said the CEO, Rahil Ahmed of Rock Bank. The new offering is powered by Austria-based Bitpanda, with transactions facilitated by Bitpanda broker Mina DMCC. Going further, of course, this is probably super interesting. As we've been covering on the show here for a while, we're starting to see the domino effect of countries embracing Bitcoin, of banks embracing Bitcoin, of sovereign wealth funds embracing Bitcoin, and of course, of corporations embracing Bitcoin. And we have been hearing some kind of rumors coming out of the Middle East of countries embracing Bitcoin. The biggest news was obviously a sovereign wealth fund buying Bitcoin. It was really through the ETFs and MicroStrategy. And now we have the first conventional bank to embrace Bitcoin. Now, what is interesting, of course, if you're familiar with UAE, United Arab Emirates, it is made up of 7 emirates. So Ras Al Khaimah, is one of those emirates here. And of course, they're not, the guy that backs this is not the king. The king is usually from Abu Dhabi. But what is interesting is that it is backed by the government. Now, I know a lot of Bitcoiners out there are probably saying, hey, I thought we were here to separate money from state. Yes, this is true. But what we're seeing is a watershed moment where everyone is embracing Bitcoin. And this is why, personally, I think that we are entering into a new epoch in Bitcoin. Last cycle, 2017 cycle, we didn't have banks, nation states, literally the biggest institutions in the world embracing Bitcoin. And we're all still kind of thinking, or rather, maybe we all still have PTSD based on the last cycle, that, hey, man, we're going to double top. It's only going to go, 6x. It's going to be diminishing returns, bro. But the foundation that I'm seeing here, and especially the announcement of the ETF, I think it's fundamentally shifting how we should view the Bitcoin cycles moving forward. The main take, most of the traditional Bitcoin take is, 4-year cycle, 2025, which should likely be a parabolic run. And then we're going to see a 2026 bear market. And maybe they're adjusting and saying, hey, it's not going to be 80% bear market. It might only be like a 50% bear market. But there is interesting news coming out, or rather some interesting data coming out since the ETF dropped. it looks like the structure of the Bitcoin cycle is fundamentally changing. And I'll pull that up for you guys in a little bit, and we can chat about that as well. But what is interesting here is, of course, there is interest coming out of the Middle East. There is at least 8 large regional banks participating in, quote, blockchain platforms used for payments, which indirectly, of course, support cryptocurrency infrastructure. But we haven't seen an official bank, a traditional bank, official, government-sponsored, state-backed bank come out of the Middle East embracing Bitcoin. There is also, we've heard some news coming out of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain, but nothing really coming out of the United Arab Emirates yet, though this is changing in real time. And it just makes me think that we are kind of entering a different time here. It does seem like things are changing really quickly on the more cultural view of Bitcoin. Remember, for a long time, it was basically a career detriment to embrace Bitcoin. And now it's the opposite. If you're not embracing Bitcoin, then you're going to be left in the dust. Now, this bank here, roughly $24 billion in U.S. currency. It's $88.3 billion in the dirham. So it's a big bank. I think it's the 4th largest bank in United Arab Emirates. So I think this is one of those moments where maybe a smaller regional bank, still a huge bank, it's one of the top 50 banks in the world, starts embracing Bitcoin. And I think this could be one of those ideas where it's a test bed. If this does well, if they get a lot of traction, a lot of liquidity going to them, then I think this will happen very quickly. And we're going to see things start to snowball extremely fast here. Now, I'm going to pass this over to Chris real quick before I show you kind of this new view of maybe the ETFs have fundamentally shifted the Bitcoin cycle. So, Chris, you've been along on the journey with it. I think you've literally been on every show we've done about the Middle East embracing Bitcoin. So what's your thoughts on seeing this? And really on top of that also, let's emphasize just how, whether you love Trump or not, he's fundamentally shifted the game here, and now everyone is taking Bitcoin seriously. So what's your thoughts upon hearing this news, Chris?
Well, definitely the Overton window has shifted. I'm just imagining this young 23, 24-year-old intern being working for this bank and now day trading inside the bank using bank funds. I'm just kidding. Obviously, that would probably be illegal. Not allowed to do that. But no, I honestly think that the Overton window has greatly shifted. I think when Trump spoke at Bitcoin 2024, he basically put the world on notice, and then obviously winning the presidency, signing an executive order, a Bitcoin strategic reserve, trying to account for how much Bitcoin the U.S. government has, which a lot of people are speculating is way less than we were expecting they had. But yeah, no, I think it's a huge deal. And Opti, as you were saying, this bank, if you want to come back into frame, you're saying that this bank is one that is kind of in collaboration with the government. So obviously, So obviously the UAE and their government are basically, it may be a private bank, but basically them and their government officials are signaling, we know about Bitcoin, we recognize Bitcoin, it's a serious asset, and that's why we're opening it up. I know obviously you and I are in the boat that, hey, it should be a Bitcoin only bank or a Bitcoin only play. They're doing a crypto play. I think the way that I view this in Opti, I know that we've talked offline about this, that basically everyone needs to take their lumps. Back in the 2015 to 2017 era, there was a lot of people ICOs and people day trading other cryptos. They were kind of getting distracted by all the shiny objects. I know many legendary Bitcoiners were the same way. And then basically right after the fork wars in 2017, 2018, it was basically it's Bitcoin and everything else. And I think that kind of solidified it for a lot of the people that were in for 2018 and before. Obviously 2020, there was a very strong class of Bitcoiners then. I consider myself, I'm part of that class, but a lot of people were learning from the mistakes of Bitcoiners and people that had come before us. It's Bitcoin and there's everything else. I think governments and everyone else that is not familiar with this industry still says crypto, we like the underlying blockchain technology. We really like what Bitcoin's offered, but it's not going to be the best currency in the world. Well, dude, it's called the leaderboard, and Bitcoin is the 5th largest asset in the world. It is by far the largest cryptocurrency, not even close. So I just want to say, look at the scoreboard when anyone's telling you otherwise. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I forget who said, I think it was actually Mr. Hotto who first said it, is everyone basically there's a journey when you get into Bitcoin, and usually you do a pit stop with shitcoins, and then you finally end up at what we always talk about being Bitcoin maxis, Bitcoin only. Like, all roads lead to Bitcoin, and one of the surest ways to become a Bitcoin maximalist or a Bitcoin only person is by burning your hand on shitcoins. And could we expect, or rather should have we expected, that when nation states and banks come into the space, that they aren't going to kind of take that shitcoin pivot right now? Now, of course, they could just not even be fully ideologically aligned with any of the shitcoins. They're just like, hey, look, these are the biggest ones. You know, as Gary Gensler was saying for a while, we don't want to pick winners and losers here. We're just going to open it up to the top. What do they call them? Blue chip cryptos. It seems like that's kind of what they're doing. And of course, people want to trade this stuff. It's a bank. They want profits. They want fees. They want to make money off of this stuff. Now, I think, okay. Hold on, Chris. I forgot to plug this in.
I'll filibuster while you're there. Well, I know we all know that Opti is secretly a Gary Gensler lover. He thinks he is the ultimate Bitcoin bull. Obviously, he was talking about how Gary Gensler was actually protecting everyone, and he is actually doing what he said, even though he was holding back the Bitcoin ETFs. And I think a lot of Democrats, or at least the liberals and Democrats from the DNC, blame him for why they lost the election in 2024 to Donald Trump and JD Vance. Obviously, but Opti's like, Gary Gensler, Dr. Daddy Gary was protecting retail investors. He was doing right by everyone else. Obviously that's Opti's take. I don't think that's my take, but obviously with the Trump administration, when they're laxing regulation for Bitcoin, they were also doing it for the crypto folks as well. And I think that's kind of what a lot of people have the problem with. I know other people have brought up, Trump launching the meme coin like 4 days or 2 days before he's about to take office, before inauguration. It's pretty crazy and kind of, basically I'll call it what it is, a spade. Like, basically people were buying favor by buying the Trump coin. Justin Sun had an opportunity to sit at the Trump's round table. I think there was like 25 seats that they were selling. And basically this is a way to buy direct access with him and his family. So want to call it money laundering, want to call it a bribe. It is what it is. I'm just calling it how I see it. But maybe Opti was onto something, that Gary Gensler was actually team Bitcoin and protecting retail investors and everyone else. But I don't know.
Well, to be fair, I was actually kind of trolling when I was going the whole Gary Gensler was a Bitcoin maximalist. I was kind of using his own words against him in that sense, that this is what he was saying. And then he came out, or rather, he got pretty much pushed out of the SEC position. And he's just like, yeah, it's Bitcoin only. And I'm like, look, he was a maxi all along. I was obviously trolling here. But at least that was his official position, right? It was two. We're protecting investors, and we don't want to pick winners and losers. And now, in hindsight, you can make whatever argument you want about it. It's like, you can pick whatever side of the coin you want. Was Gary Gensler good for Bitcoin? He did allow the ETF, even if it was delayed, or was he actually fighting Bitcoin, which is like what all of us Bitcoiners were saying for a long time, considering he taught a course on blockchain at MIT. Like, you think he'd know better. And then he gets out of the SEC position. He's like, actually, there's Bitcoin and there's everything else. And you're like, okay, so maybe he was on our side the whole time. My favorite conspiracy on this, I wouldn't even say it's a conspiracy. My favorite take on this is that the reason Gary kind of fought the Bitcoin ETF launch for so long is because he wasn't able to find a way to stop the floodgate of shitcoin ETFs being launched. I kind of like that take. Whether that's real or not, I don't know. That might be a more positive, optimistic view of Gary Gensler. In hindsight, we could always make whatever narrative we want around Gary Gensler, paint him as a good guy or a bad guy. But that did make I was like, okay, that seems a little bit favorable. Anyways, let's everyone's talking about my haircut right now. It wasn't a Peaky Blinders fade, guys. Okay. It was a Miami fade. All right, difference. Anyways, as I said a minute ago, shouts out to our boy Mitchell Hotto, literally one of my favorite Zoomers out there. And he's making the case that ever since the ETF was launched, the fundamental cycle of Bitcoin, the fundamental market structure of the price has changed. Now, we don't have enough data for this, but It is kind of making a good case. So here we go. His tweet: BTC US dollar looks like two entirely different assets before and after the ETF launch. The days of parabolic bull markets and devastating bear markets are over. Bitcoin is going to $1 million over the next 10 years through a consistent oscillation between, quote, pump and consolidation. It will bore everyone to death along the way and shake the tourists out of their position. Strap in. And I don't know if we have enough data to really show this, but this does, on a intuitive level, makes sense to me. One of the real bases for this is this idea that when the institutions kind of come into a market, especially a small market like Bitcoin, they obviously have enough capital and sophisticated financial engineering to kind of control the market for a little bit. Now, a lot of people have been saying this is market manipulation. They want to keep the price down. They're suppressing it. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Obviously, I think there is some paper Bitcoin and there is some quote unquote price suppression in the Bitcoin market. But the bigger idea, I think, is if you look at the S&P 500, and I've been making this case for a long time. If you look at the S&P here, actually, maybe I'll pull it up for you so you guys can see what I'm saying. If you look at the S&P 500, and I've been joking for a while that we're basically just trading the S&P 500 now because we're just getting bored to death. It does kind of have this very boring up and to the right look here. So here, I'm on the month chart, so it's not fully ideal, but look at the S&P 500. Again, this is the monthly candles, and I'll zoom in a little bit. It is starting to kind of look what we're seeing in the Bitcoin market. It just kind of has this gradual boring up and to the right. It's got like 25, 30% corrections, and then it recovers, and then it just keeps pumping up and to the right. Well, this is what these institutional investors are used to trading. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this is what we're seeing right here. And you could kind of make the case that that's what Mitchell Hodl was saying. It's like these big institutional investors are coming into the space, and it looks like we're just going to be seeing these kind of boring, dips. Like for us, a dip's like 80%. That's when we get ravaged out there and we're like, we need to buy the dip. It's on discount. We might not be seeing 80% dips. Now, obviously, we won't know until the end of the year. But if you do kind of zoom in here, you look at this, let me cut off. Oh, it won't let me. Let me cut off the end here. Look at this market structure, and then I'm going to go back to the S&P 500. And I don't know, guys. There, you could make an argument that this is kind of what we're seeing play out in the market now. Of course, with more huge capital, with more banks and more nation states and more ETF capital coming in, you could make the case that we are now trading the S&P 500. Now, do I agree with Mitchell Hodl on this idea that we're not going to see crazy pumps anymore? Not really. I did a tweet the other day. Now, as I told you yesterday, I was watching Mark Moss this weekend. I went to a Mark Moss rabbit hole, and he said something that was super interesting. And actually, look, since I'm alone here with Chris, I will bring a meme for you guys. And I made this last night just on a whim. It did some numbers, bro. I did some numbers yesterday, okay? It's got like 100 likes.
Numbers.
Dude, I'm doing numbers. I'm literally the meme. It's this idea. So what Mark Moss said that really kind of planted the idea is like, look, what you're seeing in the Bitcoin price the first 16 years, obviously, like, it was incredible. It took Bitcoin how long? 10 years to get to $1 trillion market cap. It went very quickly to 2. And what I think we're going to see in the next 16 years of Bitcoin is what we like to call, the S-curve adoption. Like, I think it's going to go even more parabolic the next 16 years. And my tweet was something on like, the next 16 years is going to be more bullish than the first 16 years. And I'm fully convinced of that. Like, I'm seeing what I'm seeing on the adoption level with like the news we're seeing, Middle East starting to embrace Bitcoin. We're seeing sovereign wealth funds literally being created just to buy Bitcoin. We're seeing the U.S. superpower, economic superpower, pivot and say they're going to literally open up the floodgates into Bitcoin. And we don't even have to get into my whole stablecoin thesis of they're going to expand the money supply to essentially pump assets up into the moon. This was my meme from yesterday. And this is, for you visual learners, is literally what I'm thinking is going to play out. And it goes Bitcoin in the first 16 years, the roots, the foundations are being built. And then Bitcoin, and just to be hyperbolic, in the next 12 weeks, I think my math is way wrong because it should have been 24 weeks. What's 6 months? That's 24 weeks, basically. I did 12 weeks, 3 months, whatever. Is when the leaves start to sprout. And this is where you really start to see all the crazy stuff play out. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. With all the news we're seeing, Nico keeps saying, this is the most bullish cycle in terms of news, but it's the most boring in terms of price action. I think we're just getting heated up. I think it's going to still pump. I think it's still going to have an incredible price move. It's just hard to see with so much liquidity buying Bitcoin. Every day there's a new Bitcoin treasury company announced. I don't know if you guys saw, but Jack Mahler's 21 Capital, of course, partner with Cantor Fitzgerald. They just announced that they have, I think their initial announcement is they wanted to get 50,000 coins. They literally in this week have jumped all the way up to the third largest Bitcoin treasury company. They have something around like 43,000 Bitcoin already. So it seems like they are being overcapitalized right now. They have way more Bitcoin than they even claimed they were going to get. And I think this is only going to increase. And I think as the meme goes, every company will be a Bitcoin treasury company. Will they be a strategy Bitcoin company in the sense of they're going to be taking free, basically free money, free debt, and buy Bitcoin? I don't think so. But I think every company in the world will have Bitcoin on their balance sheet and essentially be a corporate, quote unquote, corporate Bitcoin treasury company. Anyways, I'm starting to make myself even more bullish. It's hard to make yourself more bullish. Yeah, dude, everyone in the chat, S&P and chill. Literally, it's guys, we're gonna be bored to death to $1 million. I like this is probably the truest thing I've heard in a long time, considering this year. I think we're gonna be bored to death to $1 million, but it's gonna be like bored to death to $1 million in like 2027. So in like 2 years, you're still gonna get a 10x gain, but it's just gonna be a boring 10x game. It's not gonna be like a 12-day pump. I don't know. That's kind of just what my intuition's telling me. That's where I'm at right now. But Chris, what are you thinking?
I got a question for you, Opti. So I'm gonna flip the script here. I'm gonna ask you a question. So I forget who popularized this, but basically I was hearing like, obviously a lot of people are very hesitant about these Bitcoin treasury companies, or just even these companies in collaboration with governments, as we could see with the UAE bank, or even just a lot of these banks and government officials that are like bullish on Bitcoin. But do you see it? I forget who said it. Like I said, is this like Bitcoin's Trojan horse? Like, I think people are worried about government officials, governments, dictators, whatever, coming in and trying to change Bitcoin or changing the culture? Or do you think Bitcoin goes in and changes them? So a lot of people have said it's a Trojan horse. Like everyone needs Bitcoin at the end of the day, but I think they're worried about the consequences of the culture and trying to change or modify or I hate to say gamify, but like basically trying to potentially harm developers, as we saw with Choke Point 2.0, or trying to stifle Bitcoin's innovation. So what are your thoughts on that? Is Bitcoin the Trojan horse?
Chris, I don't mean to side swipe or step around your question, but I literally wanted to talk about this on the culture. So I got some. We're going to talk about this later. So remember the question, and we'll rehash this at the end of the show. But my take is Trojan horse. So just not to skip the question, but I have the culture built around that same idea. So we're telepathic here. We're on a wavelength here. But yeah, we'll talk about it towards the end of the show. Because I think that's one of the big conversations happening right now. Is Bitcoin co-opted? Can Bitcoin withstand the interest, the lobbying from the great Leviathan? What is going on right now? I think that's what, especially with like shows today where we're talking about banks coming into Bitcoin. Everyone does the same. Like, I thought we were, separating money from state, bro. We literally see it in the chat. They're like, you guys are advocating for the banks to come into Bitcoin. We're like, no, we're just covering the biggest news story of the day. Like, our view is still separation of money and state. You need to save in Bitcoin, but you need to take that Bitcoin into custody. Don't give these banks your Bitcoin. Guys, don't give them your Bitcoin. That's the real take. But yeah, no, Chris, let's put a pin on it, and we'll talk about it at the end of the show.
We're in the same wavelength.
I have the whole culture wrapped around this idea. So, all right, we'll talk about this later. Anyways, guys, before I move on, of course, I do want to remind you to smash the like button, comment on this show. Are we becoming bank maxis, or are we just following the news here? And of course, hit the subscribe button, guys. We drop the best content. We drop the most content out of any Bitcoin media company or YouTube channel, period. we are ahead of the game. And on that note, I do want to give a huge shout out to our partners over at Bitcoin. Wow, this is the best place to buy your Bitcoin because they will never rug pull you. You heard me clearly. There is no possible way that they can steal your Bitcoin, and this is why we love them. When you send them your money, they send it directly to you in your cold storage. You have to give them a Bitcoin address for you to receive Bitcoin. And again, this is so they never lose a sat. They have never lost a sat, and they will never lose a sat ever because they never hold your Bitcoin. So go to bitcoinwell.com/ I believe it's Simply. Yes, or Simply BTC. Use the promo code Simply BTC. And if you scan this QR code over right here, you get 3 chances to win 1 million sats if you play the Bitcoin wishing well. And on that note, guys, if you are sitting on the sideline right now and we're making you bullish and you're like, I have 50K of fiat sitting and I don't know what to do it, or I've heard stories of people saving all their money in the banks. So like, what should I do with it? Guys, you should be smash buying all of it into Bitcoin and go to the Bitcoin OTC desk, the Bitcoin Well Infinite product. They will hold your hand through the process, white glove service, so that you ensure that you have your Bitcoin protected for the long term. All right, guys, on that note, let's get into the show. We got some interesting stuff to talk about.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
Yo, the Rumble chat. You guys got a meme, all right? Get off my back for like a week, okay, at least. Sheesh. All right, I'm over here on Clark Moody's dashboard, bitcoin.clarkmoody.com, of course, going over the Bitcoin numbers, the time chain stats. And the current Bitcoin price is 117,760. The sats per dollar is very strongly under 1,000 sats. It's crazy. We're at 849. The current block height is 907,705. And the market cap in fiat terms is $2.34 trillion. And we have secured that 10% of the gold market cap. There's still 90% of the hard money game to achieve. And everyone's freaking out. And we're just at a, negative 4.4% decline from all-time high. It's over, guys. It's never been more over. No. Actually, I was going to say no, we've never been more back, but actually, guys, I think it's never been more over, okay? So we got a clip coming out, and Jim Cramer is starting to get bullish on Bitcoin. So I was trying to bring a little lightheartedness. You guys always yell at me about the memes. Well, we have a living meme in real time, but let's hear what he says.
It's not about Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin, you can put it in the speculation basket, but at the same time, how many companies, we were just going over these numbers, are raising money to buy Bitcoin? Well, it's enormous.
I was offered a chance to do it. I said,
far more than has been raised by companies going public.
It's because it's almost encouraged. I mean, the SEC chief is like,
this is a very crypto-positive administration, no doubt about that. Well, that's been a real positive for all of the different.
It's also a great hedge against the budget deficit.
Well, it may be seen,
which is what it is.
Michael Saylor would say that, right? Store of value.
I was with someone whose son took his paycheck and bought bought Bitcoin. I started a job, a good job, 5 years ago, and now it doesn't really have to work. And he's totally hedged. The kids hedged. Father has to work. I'm not kidding. The kids hedged. Look, I mean, this is happening. We don't want to talk about it, or maybe we think it's Weimar. Maybe it's Weimar 23.
Well, I mean, it's not often you create a new asset class and then write the regs around it in real time at the same time. That's different. And we don't know what that's going to bring.
Well, like the guys from Circle, I mean, I said that maybe there's a possibility that JP Morgan or BlackRock could do a stablecoin. And you get the usual emails, just like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's gonna be much bigger. I've gotten more, I don't know what you're talking about emails, and it's like so many of it. It's like great. Because every time I don't know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm talking about.
All right, guys, it's never been more over.
It's over, dog.
Cancel the bull run. All of my bullish talk in the beginning has completely been destroyed because of Jim Cramer.
Maybe the economists were right, Opti. We become Weimar Germany because of Bitcoin, because of Jim Cramer.
Well, I mean, talking of Weimar, it is interesting. Like, he is directionally correct. You know, what he said is crazy. Maybe this is Weimar 2025. Like, maybe we are in the beginning of the currency hyperinflating. I don't actually think that the US dollar is going to hyperinflate that quickly. I think they still have a lot of tools in their tool belt to continue to, you know, make the runway longer for the dollar. And as I think actually one of the hot takes that Mark Moss was saying is like, Bitcoiners are not going to like this, but he believes that the Bitcoin will essentially give the dollar more life. And this is why we're seeing this push through stablecoins. And I think directionally he is correct. Like, what I'm seeing is also, you know, this connection between the US and Bitcoin through stable coins. It does seem like they're doing whatever they can to elongate the dollar runway. And even if you are a, you know, Larry Lepard, fiat doomer type person, I think this can go on a lot longer. I think the dollar is going to be with us for at least the next 10, 20 years. But during that time, Bitcoin will, the dollar will fundamentally continue to lose value. It loses value by design. And it is very interesting to see the correlates between the current dollar dominance and what we saw, you know, in Weimar Germany when the currency is hyperinflated. And as you know, you need to protect yourself in hard assets. There is that historical example of someone in Weimar Germany that basically was hedging and trading in precious metals, and they made a killing throughout the time. Now we just updated this to, it doesn't need to be precious metals. You just need to buy Bitcoin. You just need to continue to buy Bitcoin daily. And this is how you protect yourself against whatever craziness is coming. And actually in the news, we have one of the biggest billionaires essentially saying the same thing, continuing to double down on the debt loop spiral, or the doom debt spiral. What's it? Doom spiral? I forget what they call it now.
Doom loop spiral?
Doom loop spiral. That's the one. And so a lot of the signs are there. Now, do you have to go full doomer? I don't think you have to go full doomer. I don't think Bitcoin's success depends on the collapse of the dollar here. Bitcoin's going to succeed either way, as far as I'm concerned. It's just superior money. But with a catastrophic collapse of the dollar, of course, you'll see the Bitcoin price go absolutely nuclear. Now, the funny part about this, though, of this clip from Jim Cramer, is at the end where he's like, dude, one of my friend's kids has hedged himself in Bitcoin, and he just kicks back by the pool. It's probably like American Hodl or something like that, chilling by the pool, drinking margaritas, like, hey, you have to go to work, Dad. Like, are you winning, Dad? No, I have to clock in, do my 9 to 5. Are you winning, son? Yeah, I'm chilling. I'm shit posting on Twitter all day. This is what's going on. We are in a new era. We're in a totally new time. And literally all you have to do is Bitcoin and chill. Save in Bitcoin, take it into custody, you know, laugh on Twitter, watch all the madness, and you are going to succeed. It's literally the easiest playbook, period. And yet, with all the good news we're hearing, people are still laughing at Bitcoin and Bitcoiners. It makes no sense to me. But with all that being said, we have just been cursed by Jim Cramer. So it's over, guys. It's completely over. We've never been more over because Jim Cramer is starting to say he likes Bitcoin. It's horrible. It's horrible. Anyways, Chris, how over is it?
Does this break the curse? Is he
Dude,
finally...
does this break the curse?
Hold
on.
I'm just say Jim Cramer goes all in on Bitcoin and that breaks the curse. I don't think that actually happens, but maybe the local top is in for the time being now that Jim Cramer is Bitcoin bull, Bitcoin maxi. Or maybe it's over for the Bitcoin treasury companies. He was talking about the Bitcoin treasury companies. Maybe it's over for them. I don't know. It remains to be seen. I guess I'll add my 2 sats to kind of your argument with Mark Moss and always our good friend Mark Goodwin. Shout out to Mark. Love the kid to death. But I definitely think, and we've even heard this from Ansel Lindner as well, like I definitely think the US dollar is going to strengthen relative to it. And I think it's kind of the scary, or I guess the George Orwell 1984 kind of it all, is like as the US dollar strengthens in fiat currency purchasing power, it gets more Orwellian in the sense that, like, you know, obviously there's bank limit caps of $10,000. I know those were set in the 70s, right when we're coming off the gold standard. And that back then was like $75,000, $80,000, $85,000, whatever the purchasing power of that was. So when you did more than $10,000, whether it was in credit card or a loan or even cash, they had to report those. Obviously, as the dollar has lost purchasing power relative to assets, so it has strengthened relative to other fiat currencies, it has weakened relative to anything you want to buy, goods and services. So with that being said, like we creep up to those limits, that means that more and more people are being surveilled. And obviously it looks like Tether is going to get welcomed into open arms in this administration. But at the same time, back in 2022 and 2023, they're like, we've onboarded the IRS and the FBI and the NSA. It's like, all right, so it's like, you know, I know Mark Goodwin hammers the drum on this. Like, while stable coins aren't CBDCs, they're almost a better CBDC. Like, yeah, they're not a central bank digital currency. They're a private company digital currency. But at the same time, they can be co-opted just as the same. And your transactions can be reversed when you're using Tether and things like that. And like, obviously, many people have vouched for the Tether guys. You know, they said they're hardcore Bitcoiners. And I believe they have a great business.
They totally are.
They have a great business model for what they do. They're giving dollars to the rest of the world that doesn't have a Venmo account or a PayPal or Robinhood or a SoFi or a way to interact with US stocks and equities and bonds. But at the same time, like I worry that they're going to be under the thumb and the regulation of the US government. So my long-winded response is like that we're building 2 parallel societies. There's one that's Bitcoin and a Bitcoin freedom-oriented society. And then there's stablecoins, CBDCs, and the US dollar strengthening and getting way stronger and harming people that stay in that system. But the weirdest thing is it's almost like the carrot and the stick that people that are in it, like, oh, I have the US dollar. It is the global reserve currency, not the global reserve asset is still treasury bonds. But at the end of the day, I believe that people are going to go into that system being like, oh, like I was in Honduras or I was in X, Y, and Z country that had their currency hyperinflate. Well, now I'm in the US dollar, which is superior, which is the king. Cash is king, the old saying. But I definitely think that you're going to harm yourself in that society or that economy because of your losing purchasing power just more slowly than the rest of the world. And to Opti's point, I think a lot of other currencies in the world outside of like maybe the Japanese yen, the Chinese yuan, maybe the euro, maybe the British pound are like the top 5 currencies that I see being around long term. I think every other currency hyperinflates relative to that. And then once those currencies hyperinflate and they either dollarize or they go to the yuan or the yen or whatever, eventually those start to feel pressure globally. So while they are devaluing slower, they're the best horse in the glue factory, as it's called. I do think long run, that is not the society or the world that we want to be in. We want to slowly inch people over to Bitcoin, people using Bitcoin as freedom money, sending Bitcoin over the Lightning Network where it's less traceable. Obviously for the receiver, it is a different story, but for the sender, it is almost perfectly private. So that's my long-winded rant. Buy Bitcoin. We're trying to orange pill you and, you know, we're trying to bore you into financial freedom and financial sovereignty. Stay humble, stack sats.
Totally. I would make one caveat to what you're saying about the currencies. I think the euro's cooked. Personally, I think the euro's
I say it as a 5, but I definitely think the euro's
I think the euro's cooked. I think the Japanese yen, though, historically has been one of the stronger currencies and kind of one of the measuring sticks. I think the Japanese yen's pretty cooked. I think the British pound's been cooked. I think, you know, they have that legacy. So like that's 3 of the top 5. The only one that you missed that I think will be one of the stronger currencies is the Swiss franc.
I was just thinking the Swiss franc.
Yeah, I think the Swiss franc, the US dollar, and probably the Chinese yuan are like the main 3, you know, fiat currencies that are going to probably last for the foreseeable future. I think the European euro's done. I think the Japanese yen's like literally on life support right now. and the British pound just been freaking absolutely nuked as well. So if you are, if you happen to be on the show and you're a Forex trader or something and you trade traditional fiat currencies, and those are the three currencies you're probably looking at. I mean, I measure literally the dollar every morning against the Swiss franc and the Japanese yen. Just because just historically, like the difference, or rather the significance of those currency exchange rates can tell you a lot about what's going on in the global geopolitical macro environment right now. It's like Japanese yen, of course, literally my favorite kind of take on the reason why Satoshi called himself Satoshi Nakamoto is to essentially say, hey, US dollar, you're going to become the Japanese yen. We've all been seeing what's going on in the bond markets in Japan. They're not doing so hot right now, and they are literally like the first QE advocates. They're the ones, hey, you can inflate your money out of up into infinity. And then Swiss franc has historically one of the strongest, most stable, not only central banks, but currencies around the world. So if you want to start to kind of dive into macro stuff, highly recommend you look at the US dollar versus Japanese yen exchange rates and the US dollar versus Swiss franc exchange rates. And it does tell you a lot of what's going on in the world. Of course, you can also look at treasury yields for the pound and yen, etc. But there's a lot of information to be found in what Chris was saying. The relative strength of currencies between each other do tell you a lot of what's going on in the world. But of course, for us, you can simplify it. Just look at what the Bitcoin to US dollar exchange rate is, and that tells you everything you need to know. Are we pumping or are we dumping? That's all we want to know here.
The easiest fiat currency short is to not actually short them, because you can get yourself blown up. It's to buy Bitcoin with the fiat currency. And that's another spicy take. How long can you trade paper money that's printed for free for a freedom money that is Bitcoin? That remains to be seen when that ends.
Yeah, dude, you can just short all fiat currencies by buying Bitcoin. Keep it
Take it in
simple,
self-custody. Yeah, take it in self-custody.
Take it in self-custody. This is how you win. All right, guys. And on that note of what's it called? Death doom loop spirals. What is that? What it is?
Death doom loop spiral.
Yeah, death doom loop spiral. We have an interesting update from Ray Dalio going around. He is starting to get more bullish on hard assets, or maybe just more extremely bearish on fiat debt cycles. So let's get into that.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
You know, I was looking around right now on the ad break, and I was like, oh, I don't have my Cold Card. I do. It's in a Faraday bag on our desk now. Get yourself one of these. This is so sexy.
A nice SATS 102, 123
Faraday. 123 Faraday bag. We're okay. This is the old one. All right. You know, protecting. Look, I did just move from Dallas, Chris. I haven't told you. I'm gonna tell this on air. And I'm so paranoid. But so like I traveled through to where were we just? What was the last conference we were at? I forget. Anyways.
Vegas?
Oh yeah. So left Dallas, traveled to Vegas, and I didn't want to ship all my stuff, or rather, I didn't want to ship my my hardware wallets to Miami, like in the case. So I carried them with me
in your butt,
in my carry-on bag, and I'm like, dude, I'm gonna get so wrecked right now. This like, what am I doing? This sucks. And then as I'm going, I'm like, wait. Is the X-ray machine going to ruin my hardware wallet?
It could.
Right? That's what I was thinking. So I did this and just put my my hardware wallet in a Faraday bag, shipped it through the X-ray, carried on, and it still works. So I did that. I literally did that, guys. So I'm not just shilling just to shill. It actually works. Okay. Anyways, as we were talking about the debt, what's it, dude? How am I debt doom loop? Okay, debt doom loop. Why am I messing that up today? Guess just not enough coffee. We've been covering Ray Dalio on this show for like the last couple of months. And it seemed like slowly but surely he keeps coming closer and closer to becoming a Bitcoiner. He was originally very skeptical of Bitcoin. Then he kind of dipped into his toes and was like, I'm not the biggest fan of Bitcoin, but you should probably just at least hedge your portfolio with 1%. Now he's coming out and saying you should probably have 15% in hard assets, and that is either Bitcoin or gold. And he's kind of recommending, like, look, I don't care how you split that up, but that should be the recommendation. So breaking news, Ray Dalio is saying you should buy 15% of Bitcoin in your portfolios, but let's really break down what he's saying and why he thinks you should be holding Bitcoin. So on Cointelegraph, Ray Dalio suggests putting 15% in Bitcoin gold amid U.S. debt doom loop. Hedge fund manager Ray Dalio suggests investors put 15% of your portfolio into, quote, store of value assets amid America's debt crisis. Now, I think Ray Dalio is kind of historically been more of like a Chicken Little, sky is falling type person, but he did just drop a new book. So maybe he's just, shilling his bags here. Like maybe he's just shilling his product here and he wants people to read the book. But anyways, whether he's scamming us into financial freedom or not, the point remains the same. Ray Dalio is saying you should buy 15% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And going in here, Ray Dalio has recommended a 15% portfolio allocation into Bitcoin or gold to optimize for the, quote, best return to risk ratio in light of America's crippling debt problem and currency devaluation. Quote, if you are optimizing your portfolio for the best return to risk ratio, you would have about 15% of your money in gold or Bitcoin. And then he said, of course, some Bitcoin, but not too much. And he still strongly prefers gold to Bitcoin. I mean, he's a boomer. Can we really blame him? Not all boomers are bad. Again, before you guys start saying that Bitcoin's or Opti's an ageist here and he doesn't like boomers. I love the Bitcoin boomers. I'm just saying. It's a lot easier for him to be like, yeah, I want to hold physical gold versus like, let me figure out this new tech money thing going on. Anyways, he says the exact split between Bitcoin and gold is, quote, up to you. His 15% suggestion marks a sharp increase from 1% to 2% Bitcoin allocation, which he recommended in January 2022. The issue is the devaluation of money. Hold on. Dalio said, while pointing out that the U.S. government will likely need to issue another $12 trillion worth of treasury over the next year to service its mounting debt. Again, guys, the interest payment on our debt is bigger than the money we spend on our military. I repeat, the interest payments, just the payments on our national debt is more than we spend on the U.S. military industrial complex. It's absolutely nuts. And that doesn't even account for the unfunded liabilities, which are in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. It's absolutely nuts. Anyways, the reason I also wanted to bring this up, not only because Ray Dalio is a formidable name, you know, he's a maverick in his space. He is a well-known person. But he is kind of confirming what I and Mark Moss has been saying about U.S. treasuries and, in reality, what we've been kind of saying about stablecoins, expanding the money supply stealthily, silently, so that people on Main Street, that traditional investors don't realize that their currencies, their purchasing power is being destroyed. They have to inflate their way out of this. So a U.S. Treasury report released on Monday projected another $1 trillion in new borrowing in the third quarter due to weaker cash flows and lower reserve. Again, it took the U.S., I forget what the number is, someone can fact check me, but it took the U.S., I believe, like 100+ years to get to $1 trillion in debt. And now we are about to issue that in just the third quarter alone. It really is Weimar vibes. I don't know, man. It really is when government kills money in real time. The Treasury also expects to borrow $590 billion in Q4, added to the U.S. government's growing reliance on debt to fund budget expenses and worsening concerns about its future fiscal path. So what we're telling you guys, this is literally the main signal that most people, I think, on mainstream, your friends and your family, do not understand. They have to continue to issue more debt just to keep the freaking machine going, guys. This is the only way it's working right now. It cannot be stopped. They have to continue to issue debt. Dalio noted that other Western countries, including the UK, face the same debt doom loop issue. Hence why me and Chris were just debating that the British pound is over, guys, and that their currencies will continue to underperform relative to hard currencies like Bitcoin and gold, which he described as an effective diversifier. Dude, we've gone so far in the last, I would say, 6 months. Bitcoin is now, you know, an effective diversifier. It's a hard currency. It's going to protect yourself from debt doom loops. It's the best money out there. You do not want to be holding currencies. It's like common knowledge at this point. Well, it's not too common because still a lot of people don't understand what's going on. He does say he's skeptical about Bitcoin becoming a reserve currency. He's talking about recent highs, etc. But the point remains the same. We are seeing a coming crisis. It might not happen this year. It might take 10 years. It might take 20 years for this to play out. But the point remains the same. If you are holding fiat currencies at this point, your purchasing power is going to get destroyed. And I really like Matt Hogan's take right here. So what's this? Rick Edelman last week, 2 weeks ago, says you should probably hold about 10 to 40% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And this week, Ray Dalio says 15% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. And you, the viewer, are still at zero. What is going on, guys? Like, we're on YouTube, so I got to be nice, but get all your stuff together. Get it out of the dark place in your behind and start saving in Bitcoin. You need to understand what's going on in Bitcoin. It's literally a necessity now. You don't have the luxury of ignoring Bitcoin at this point, especially when nation states, biggest institutions, sovereign wealth funds, basically every corporate institution is looking into it. If you are still on the sidelines, you're literally you're not going to make it. Sorry. It's just NGMI, not going to make it. Was it Jay yesterday? He said some crazy meme that I really like. He's like, if you're not buying Bitcoin today, you're going to be working for someone that has bought Bitcoin. I'm going to double down on that. That's bars. I think that's absolute bars. And I think that's the future we're going towards. Anyways, I rambled long enough. Chris, I know you were kind of like before you got into Bitcoin, you watch macro stuff. So what's the significance to you about Ray Dalio upping his portfolio allotment to Bitcoin from 1% to 2% to 15%? Dude, we're inch by inch. We are taking over the world.
I'd say it's huge. To put it into perspective, like there's the big hedge fund managers of the world, or the big, big money guys in the world. There's Warren Buffett probably is one, and then there's Ray Dalio at number 2. And I really mean that. Maybe Carl Icahn, the guy that popularized investing in S&P 500 index with Vanguard funds. So like maybe those are like the big three, the Mount Rushmore. Maybe you could add a fourth one on there. But like when you think of like the guys, when it comes to money, Ray Dalio is probably one of the largest ever. Obviously, he has famous books on, or he has the famous YouTube video on how the economic machine works. And like millions of people have watched at this point. It's actually a really great way of talking about how money gets into the system, obviously with debt and treasury bonds and central bank. Like obviously for a Bitcoiner, many Bitcoiners know this because we've been taught it or we've learned it in our studies, but it's a great thing for normies to kind of just slowly orange pill them into the world of macroeconomics. And then now you've got Ray Dalio backing it up with talk of instead of 1% to 2%, 15% saying that you should get into Bitcoin. So I really respect Ray Dalio a lot. I know many people have gripes with him because he's very pro-China. What was his last book, Opti? It was basically talking about the ever-changing world order. And he talked about the U.S. as a falling power where China is a rising power. And historically, when those two meet and cross, the rising power normally always wins, and it runs in 250-year cycles. Obviously, the U.S. is coming up on 250 years next year. So basically, he was saying the U.S. is a falling power, China is a rising power, and that China will usurp the U.S. eventually and become the global dominant world power at number one. Obviously, you know, the British Empire was before us and Spain and, you know, all the different empires before that. And that's kind of the thesis of his book. But maybe he's changing. Maybe he's pivoting and seeing, you know, the sovereign individual or Bitcoin being the rising power or the digital nomad or the freedom-oriented person. But yeah, when Ray Dalio talks, many people, maybe not Bitcoiners, listen to him, but Wall Street takes notice when Ray Dalio speaks.
Yeah, totally. And that, look, I know a lot of Bitcoiners do the like slay your heroes meme, and they're very, we're like in a white cell immunity. We literally tear down everyone. But Main Street normies, they're completely different. It's like they wait for these signals until they start to embrace something. You know, it is a kind of herd mentality over there. Yeah. And Chris, to your point, let's read Ray Dalio's book titles because they are progressively getting crazier. Yeah, in like a good way, guys. Not like he's losing his mind. So first one in 07, How the Economic Machine Works, a template for understanding what is happening now. Great title. Principles, Life of Work, 2017 is most famous. It's kind of, okay, whatever. Next book, 2018, Principles for Navigating Big Debt Crises. In 2021, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, Why Nations Succeed and Fail. And then the one this year, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle. Bro, I don't know if he's just caught up in the doom loop, but...
So what's his next book? Buy Bitcoin, don't get fucked?
No, he does the... All right, so Principles for How Governments Broke Money. You should buy Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'll take a royalty on that one, Ray Dalio. All right, anyways, let's get into the culture because Chris actually started the show with this question. And I think it's a very interesting question because I've been wondering the same thing, and I got some tweets to kind of lay the context here.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitcoinBend.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Bend's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, And you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys. Tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth. And join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io. Join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, guys, before I lay this down, shout out to Chris for the 10 pounds, for the 10 Great Britain pounds. And he says, we got this, Ron. Opti, get some sexy sats. Appreciate it. And shout out to Ron for peer pressuring you guys into sending us a super chat. Oh, man, love you guys. This is so much fun. The chat's fun today. You guys are being nice. I like it. You guys don't have me crashing out over the chat. Anyways, before Chris asked the question this morning, I actually wanted to talk about this yesterday on the show, but we had a guest, and so I wasn't able to bring it up. But this tweet was making the round, and it actually sparked a huge debate on Twitter. It pretty much went viral within our circle, and it's this idea of whether Bitcoin has been co-opted and what is going on with a lot of these old Bitcoin wallets from 2011, 2014 selling their Bitcoin. Well, Scott Melker, the wolf of all streets, kind of a notorious shitcoiner, to be completely honest here, but you know, he claims to be a Bitcoiner, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt here. Anyways, he tweeted this, and it really sparked the debate on Twitter. So it goes, I continue to ask my guests, quote, who's selling Bitcoin? And he goes, the answer from those who have been here since the beginning, like Eden Yago and Bruce Fenton, is always the same. Early whales who are here for the freedom and libertarian ideals, who have thrown in the towel because they see their community cheering the government and Wall Street. It's an entirely new ball game now. And then going further, Bruce Fenton tweeted, have a listen. The world isn't supposed to be like this. Bitcoin and this tech has power to increase freedom. Instead, we're become more subservient to tyrants, AML, KYC, accredited investors rules, et cetera, et cetera. It's all immoral, tyranny, and unethical. Bring back the cypherpunks. And then Scott follows this up a little later, and he goes, Bitcoin is amazing, but it's obviously been co-opted to some degree by the very people that it was created as a hedge against. Many of the most ardent early whales have seen their faith shaken and have been selling at this price. And then the Bitcoin kind of response to this, you can see Matt Hogan down here. He's like, I get this, but Bitcoin's still pretty revolutionary. It's the first global money backed not by the state and the threat of violence, but by logic and community. Respect to the early whales, and let's keep building. The world needs more Bitcoin, or the world needs Bitcoin more than ever. We have Alex Gladstein go, no technical aspect of Bitcoin has been, quote, co-opted. The network remains cypherpunk, and the tools get more so by the day, despite, or even I would argue because of mainstream adoption. Major challenges around education, mining decentralization, privacy remain, but co-opted, no. And then we have Pierre Rochard quote tweeting that, and he goes, you still have the freedom to generate private keys, derive public addresses, contribute hash rate, operate a mining pool, and verify with a full Bitcoin node. Early adopters got psyoped into selling. Be grateful. They gave buyers a better entry point. Now, I am kind of on the lines of what Pierre Rochard is saying. And we actually got a very good comment in the chat. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Well, while you're looking for it, Opti,
yeah, go for it, Chris.
I'll kind of comment on this. So it's very funny. It's like, okay, so they're selling, but they're selling for what? US dollars? Right. I give up the towel. I throw in. So this great internet money, as Pierre Rochard says, you can generate an address. You can send it peer-to-peer without being stopped. I'm selling it for US dollars. You know, that's, you know, I'm throwing in the towel because this has been co-opted. So I'm going to use something that's not co-opted, like the US dollar. Or let's just even give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they're using another cryptocurrency. So they're losing purchasing power relative to holding just Bitcoin. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, maybe they're disheartened. Maybe they're selling. But also, can we just say, like, point this out loud? Maybe they're just living life. It's like, hey, I'm a billionaire or worth multiple millions. Maybe I'm just selling it to live my life. I'm selling Bitcoin or using Bitcoin as a currency to buy goods and services to make my life better. My family buying a house, buying a car, going on vacation, they're spending it. You know, so maybe they're quote unquote selling it But I don't think they're like just like they're selling it in a fit of rage. They're like, oh, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm cashing in my millions or billions or whatever it is, and then I'm just gonna hold the U.S. dollar from here until the end of time. I mean, they can do that, but that just seems so counter. So, oh, I was so full libertarian or early cypherpunk, and now I've just thrown in the towel. It's like you can just do things. You don't need to wait for permission. It's like if you're so hell bent on KYC AML, create a non-KYC way of selling and trading Bitcoin. It's like, oh, but there's risk to that. Obviously, there's risk to anything. There's risk to walking outside your house. So I don't buy this whole like throwing in the towel, giving up. Yeah, one of the greatest quotes that was said by Jeff Booth is the worst thing about Bitcoin is it is going to be used by the person you hate this most in this world. What that basically means is Bitcoin is for anyone. Anyone can use it, and there's nothing you can freaking do to stop it. You can be the most powerful dictator in the world. You can be the most powerful government in the world, and there's nothing you can do to stop it, barring just killing them. And like that's a world that gets very scary and gets very civil unrest. Normally, politicians don't like that. So while governments or dictators do that, normally there's huge revolutions, and normally it is not a good time to be a politician or a government official in that. I'm not advocating for violence. I hope that does not happen, but Bitcoin is a peaceful way to opt out to prevent that from happening. I'll end my rant right there. Sorry, Oppie.
No, it was great. It was great because it took me this long to find that comment. So it was a perfect rant, and we'll continue to chat on this for a little bit. But I can't pull up the comment because it was too far lost. It's too far up, and it got lost on our streaming platform. But Skip On Down the Road says separation of money and state is about the creation of money and not who buys / holds the money. And I think that's like the best way to sum this up right now. Now, my take is obviously on the same lines as what Chris has been saying and what like Pierre Rochard has been saying. Like, yes, there is a part of me that feels kind of icky, it feels like there's a cognitive dissonance going on, at least in the beginning of when we saw BlackRock kind of coming into Bitcoin. It's like it feels weird cheering on the BlackRock ETF. And then you realize it's like the best performing asset, or even kind of watching what Saylor is doing with all these different product offerings like Strike, Stride, Stretch, all this stuff. Even my initial take on like what stable coins were doing. And like, I think even Mark Goodwin would kind of say the same thing now. He's like, look, I never said it was a bad thing. I just said this is what's going to happen. And I think what Skip Down on the Road is saying is I think that like the biggest signal here is, look, we can't really control who buys Bitcoin, but they aren't co-opting the network. Yes, we saw the BlackRock kind of, what was that disclaimer that, you know, we can choose which chain we're on, and we all freaked out. I don't think that what Scott is saying, I think that could be a general take. Like, I do think some people probably are selling their Bitcoin, and I see it in the chat all the time too. You know, they'll yell at us is like, how are Nico and Opti cheering on banks and nation states buying Bitcoin? It's like, well, first of all, we're not cheering them on. This is a news show, and this is what the recent news is around Bitcoin. So we have to cover it every single day. But I don't think that the network itself has been co-opted. And to answer your question in the beginning of the show, Chris, it was something on the lines of, is Bitcoin a Trojan horse here?
Yeah.
And I totally believe it. And actually someone's kind of like low-key trolling me in the chat, but like in the good way. He's like, Bitcoin makes you smarter. You guys are talking about money in a way that you used to not even understand. It's like, yeah, we've been learning on the job with a lot of the new product announcements by like Saylor himself, and with what's going on around the U.S. embracing Bitcoin, the political sphere around Bitcoin, and them also kind of embracing stable coins, having to go down the Mark Goodwin Bitcoin dollar rabbit hole. All this stuff has, and you know, the doom loop stuff, the Larry Lepards of the world, the Lynn Aldens of the world, it does start to kind of open your eyes on what is actually going on. And I think I saw Jimmy Song tweet this morning. He's like, look, when I got into Bitcoin 10, 15 years ago, I didn't think it would go this way, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like, this is where we are, and there's still a long time to, you know, quote unquote, like course correct here. But even with that, I think even originally, if you look at what was the Hal Finney tweet, it was literally like 2 weeks after Bitcoin was created. He's like, there will be Bitcoin banks that are fully reserved, some that aren't. Like, Wall Street's going to get in here and they're going to take this thing to $10 million. So I think even some of the more insightful and far like open-minded. I don't know if open-minded is the right word, but more far-seeing early crypto cypherpunks here could see that this was where it was going to go inevitably. Like if we are really going to take over the world in the terms of like all capital is going to flow into Bitcoin, then there will be kind of these bridges from the fiat system into Bitcoin. And I don't necessarily think that that is, quote unquote, co-opting Bitcoin. I think that that's how you get capital into Bitcoin. I think I don't want to use we because I wasn't here in the early days. I'm not Satoshi, but from the earliest stuff that I can read, it feels like the path that we are on right now is inevitable. And I think Wall Street kind of embracing Bitcoin, even banks kind of embracing Bitcoin, nation states embracing Bitcoin. Like, I think this was all going to happen anyways. Maybe it's happening quicker than we thought. Maybe this is kind of like the WikiLeaks moment here, where if you are familiar with the WikiLeaks moment, it's like in the early days, I believe I'm blanking on the day, but I think it was like early 2010 or maybe it was like 2014. Do you remember when WikiLeaks was going to announce Bitcoin trading? And it was 2010 because Satoshi was around.
Yeah.
He's like, don't kick the hornet's nets. Like, we're not big enough to withstand basically the nation states coming down on us. And I think this WikiLeaks thing is a bad thing. Maybe this is kind of a same type of scenario where as a community member, I hate using the word community member, but as a Bitcoiner, someone that runs a node, someone that advocates for self-custody, someone that talks about Bitcoin constantly, this might be kind of our next big test is what we're talking about here. Is Bitcoin getting co-opted by Wall Street? Is it big enough to withstand the capital injection from all these big institutions? I think it is, but also we won't really know until it happens in real time. And we're living through this. So this is going to be one of those defining moments moving into the future is like, can Bitcoin withstand this new Wall Street injection? Because it's happening in real time. As we've seen, actually, maybe I can find the tweet of Saylor's different products and how they tap into different capital markets. Like, it's, say what you want about Saylor, but it's damn near genius what he's doing. And this is how you get capital from the fiat system into Bitcoin. One of the things that I kind of was, again, I'm on this Mark Moss rabbit hole right now. I think there's a lot of insight into what Mark Moss is saying. And one of the things I took away from him is like, a lot of Bitcoiners need to understand that essentially 97% of the world's capital is trapped in these illiquid zombie kind of, capital allocations that are fiat backed. And the products of like what Saylor's doing, what ETFs are doing, banks kind of embracing Bitcoin, it is unlocking the majority of the world's capital. And if you think the majority of the world's capital is going to go into Bitcoin, then they need to find ways to come into Bitcoin. There's so many staunch regulations around capital, these capital markets, that they can't find their way into Bitcoin. Yes, for us Main Street individual investors, like we can just smash buy Bitcoin. We could just buy spot Bitcoin. But for a lot of people and a lot of capital around the world, the majority of the world's capital, it can't find an easy way into Bitcoin without these various different products. And maybe, if there are being kind of, I guess, a little more lenient on what Scott Melker is saying, maybe people do believe that Bitcoin has been co-opted. Maybe there are some early libertarians that thought, this was going to happen on a grassroots level and every individual is just going to buy Bitcoin. And that's how we take over the world by, person by person, individual, node by node. This is how the world's going to get here. I don't know. Maybe it was a bit of utopian thinking. Maybe this is how it's going to happen. And in turn, this will fundamentally give us more freedom, more power, more purchasing power. And this is just how it was going to play out. So I think it's a Trojan horse. I'm on the Trojan horse side, and I don't think we're selling out because Wall Street's here or Bitcoiners are, Bitcoin companies are entering Wall Street and they're getting capital injections and we're seeing politicians land on our doorsteps. I just think this is how it was going to play out. Like, we are maturing. And for better or worse, a lot of Bitcoiners do have this like underdog victim mentality that's like, now that we're going mainstream, they're like, I don't like it. Bitcoiners are like hipsters. They're like, I liked this band before people liked it. And now that the world likes it, I don't want anything to do with this Bitcoin. But like Chris was saying, it makes no sense. What are you going to do? Go back into the dollar? It just...
Go back into another cryptocurrency that's getting devalued by the insiders? Like, yeah, like, what are you doing?
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Opti. And I do think I think the thing that people think is that Bitcoin's going to get co-opted and they're going to start changing the rules and we're going to be forced to just sit there and go along with it. But I guess people's memories are short, or some people haven't even been around since then. Opti, you can talk about this with being in the block size wars. Great book, by the way. There's like 4 Bitcoin books I recommend. Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, the Genesis book by Aaron Van Weerdum, the Block Wars by Jonathan Beer, and the last one was The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. Those are the 4 Bitcoin books. You should read those. Those are excellent. But in the block size war, basically there was a schism in the community that there's people that believe that the block size limit should be increased, and those were the big blockers. And then there's the people that are the small blockers today, the everyday Bitcoiners, the Bitcoiners of today that believe that the Bitcoin limit should stay the same, or even some people advocated shrinking the block size limit. So right now there is 4 megabytes per block that is allowed of data in there. There was a small upgrade of SegWit that it actually 4x the amount of ability to hold in the block size limit. So it went from 1 megabyte to 4 megabytes, but there was compromises of compression of data. So they were able to include more transactions. Long story short, big blockers, small blockers. The big blockers are known as people that were supporting Bcash, and then that became BSV. There's a whole story there, but basically they were supporting forking Bitcoin and making Bitcoin Cash. And then there was Bitcoin, or BTC traditional, that wanted to remain Bitcoin in the way that it is today. And back then there was a split in the community, and I forget what block number it was. Opti, you can probably look this up right now, but there was one block when basically the chain split, meaning that you had they were using the same hashing algorithm or a different hashing algorithm, but they had the same cryptographic way of holding your Bitcoin. So, using private keys or BIP 39 of your 12 or 24 word seed phrases. At that point, if you were to put those seed words into a Bitcoin Cash wallet or their fork, you would have the equivalent of Bitcoin Cash and the equivalent of Bitcoin. So you had your traditional Bitcoin wallet. It had, let's just say 1 Bitcoin for easy sake. You had 1 Bitcoin Cash at that equivalent. And there was an alternate market of trading. Where would Bitcoin Cash price be when it happened? And at one point they got to like 40% of Bitcoin BTC's value was going to be Bitcoin Cash. So it still was a lower valuation, but people were worried as that was creeping up from 0. And it said at one point it was 42% equivalent to 1 Bitcoin Cash being of 1 Bitcoin. So this is giving everyone the context of the story. So at one point, you basically had the equivalent of 1 Bitcoin Cash and 1 Bitcoin, and you could do anything you want. You could have held on to both. You could have sold Bitcoin Cash to get more Bitcoin, or even just sold the Bitcoin Cash to hold fiat currency, or you could have sold your BTC to buy Bitcoin Cash, or you could have done nothing, and basically you had 1 Bitcoin Cash and 1 Bitcoin, and that would be the same today. Obviously, there was a lot of scammers were trying to scam people like, oh, use my Bitcoin Cash wallet that I just created. And when you'd enter your seed words, they would steal your Bitcoin and your Bitcoin Cash. So it was called relay protection. I know this is getting to the weeds, everyone, so I apologize. But basically, I'm just giving you the context. There was the top 50 Bitcoin or crypto companies were trying to push for Bitcoin Cash. Coinbase, Bitmain, the largest producer of the Bitmain ASICs, or the Antminer ASICs. And so a lot of people were pushing or supporting. There was Roger Ver, or Bitcoin Jesus, as his moniker was called. Basically, all these people were pushing, or the money, the institutional capital was pushing for Bitcoin Cash, while the small plebs were pushing for BTC or the small blockers. And ultimately, the small blockers won. I do think, like BlackRock had that commercial where it said, oh, like, depending on the longest chain that we determine, like, I do think we will have another block size war. Maybe it's not going to be over the block size, but I do think at one point there will be a debate of institutional capital being like, well, what if we change it so we can whitelist addresses? Or what if we could do that? When that happens, the best thing to do, in my opinion, this is not financial advice, this is not advice, just do nothing. Do absolutely nothing. Keep running the same Bitcoin that you're running, and don't upgrade to the newest software that they're promoting. At the end of the day, I know, and I'm not a lawyer, Opti and I are not lawyers here, but I remember—
this is not financial advice.
Not financial advice, but when the Bitcoin ETFs came out in 2024, there was a stipulation in there that said in the event of a fork, they are not allowed to have the Bitcoin ETF and Bitcoin 2.0 ETF. So they will have to make a decision which fork they go with. And I think that was in the fine print. Obviously, that was when the ETF was launching. If a fork occurred at that moment, they'd probably have to pick one. I don't think in the future they might just spin off and create, like, we've now launched a new ticker with the new ETF symbol. But with that being said, if they had to pick, and they went against BTC, I'm assuming Bitcoin's price would go down. There'd be chaos and panic. But the worst thing to do when that is going on is to panic yourself, is to stay calm, to not do anything brash, to not enter your seed words into anything. that you're unsure of, that is not offline or not in your own possession, because that could be catastrophic. You basically, obviously, people have used that for social engineering attacks. But I do think that we will have in the future another soft fork war, or, you know, a fork war, where we're debating on a different issue, whatever it may be. And at that time, you're going to have to decide. You can always do nothing, and you have equivalent of both if there is a soft fork that occurs. So sorry for the long-winded rant there, Opti. I hope that gives context for everyone that didn't live through it or hasn't learned about the fork wars, the block size war.
No, that was great. That was great. I actually, sorry, this is a good comment. This is just financial advice. Buy as much Bitcoin as you can. I actually came into Bitcoin after the fork wars. I didn't live through the fork wars. I literally came like right when it ended, and it was still very contentious what was going on in the space. So like I had to very quickly kind of catch myself up on what just happened. I'm pretty sure what the fork wars happened in, I think it was like August of 2017. I could be kind of pushing that back a little bit. And I got in shortly after that. And I remember when I got in, it was like we didn't have the big Bitcoin only accounts that we do now. And you got in and there was so much arguments going on, so much like people slinging shit at each other, like, no, this is the real Bitcoin, this is the real Bitcoin. And you had to like very quickly catch yourself up, because everyone basically, you come into Bitcoin, you buy BTC, and then when I got in, it was like Coinbase. Now we have like Bitcoin only exchanges that make it easier, and you had to very quickly catch up on, wait, is BTC the real Bitcoin, or is it Bcash, BCH, and then
or Bitcoin SV?
Or then it was Bitcoin SV, and you're like, what is going on here? So yeah, it's I think I agree with you that will happen. And we're kind of seeing that with like the knots and core stuff, though it's not necessarily like a new fork. We're starting to see this node implementation battle going on, which can potentially lead to another fork. So yeah, just stay vigilant. This is why you guys should run a node. And like Chris said, I will also echo, don't update your node right away just because there's an update. I have the keep it simple, stupid kind of meme where it's like I wait like a year or two before I even think about updating my node. It's like, yeah, cool, a new node's updated. I still run core. I think it's like 17 or something like that. I again, I don't.
You don't even have Taproot. I think Taproot is like 20 or 21, so you don't even have that ability.
No,
yet.
Maybe it's 20. What are we on now? It's like
27, 28 is about to come out in the.
Okay, then yeah, I think I'm on like 25, I guess.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought 27 was 17. No. But yeah, no, I'm a few node updates behind, and this is by design. So yeah. Totally agree, Chris. Anyways, guys, we are going to wrap up the show, but there is a great comment here. Let me read this, because we do have some pretty big news coming out tomorrow. And if you are waiting to smash buy some Bitcoin, again, not financial advice here, but I would probably buy today. Though maybe this is going to be a, sell, buy the rumor, sell the news type story.
Opti's telling you to buy, but Jim Cramer is telling you also buy. So you should probably not buy until it drops.
Should probably not buy. I think Jim Cramer has way more aura than I do, and he can move the markets a lot better than I can. So
wait for tomorrow, a better entry price in, and yeah, just be all in, and then you're kind of
exactly. Like, but Ron P says, trust me when I tell you, Bo Hines, know this is going to go ballistic tomorrow. And for everyone that doesn't know, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Report will be released tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to come out before the show or after, but if it does come out before the show and we have enough time to kind of read it, or maybe we just get a clip, that's probably what we will cover tomorrow. That's a huge story coming out. It's big news. We're going to see officially what the U.S. government is saying about the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, whether we get some news on how they're going to stack Bitcoin budget friendly, whether they have increased their reserve count via, government forfeitures, whether there's some new regulations coming in. We should find all that out tomorrow. So we will, I think, very clearly know what is going on with the U.S. Bitcoin that they hold and the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. So that comes out tomorrow. Again, I don't know if that's going to be released before the show, but if it is, we will probably cover that tomorrow. On that note, guys, love you. Appreciate you. Smash the like button, comment on the show, and of course, hit the subscribe button. We drop the best content. We drop all kinds of content. And you guys don't want to miss Rustin, the funniest dude in Bitcoin. You don't want to miss Dante, one of the smartest dudes in Bitcoin. And and Ocean's dropping literally the most creative shows in Bitcoin. And on that note, we do have some interesting stuff we're going to be dropping for you guys on the YouTube channel. We love you guys. We will see you tomorrow. Chris, thank you so much for coming on today. Really appreciate you. On that note, guys, peace out. Get some sun today. It's good for you. Peace.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.